Stop right there. Say that sentence out loud with me right now. I speak English with confidence. Say it again, a little louder this time. Good. That's exactly the energy you're going to carry through this entire lesson. Because in the next hour and a half, you are going to walk away with more than 60 real, usable, advanced English words and phrases that native speakers actually use at work, in meetings, in interviews, and in everyday conversations when they want to sound composed, articulate, and genuinely confident. Not textbook words, not vocabulary you'll forget by tomorrow. Words you can use today in a real sentence, in a real conversation, the very next time you open your mouth in English. My name is Emma, and if this is your first time here, welcome to Natural Word English, the channel where we don't just memorize vocabulary lists. We build vocabulary the way your brain actually learns it best. The fact, inside real situations, real conversations, and real emotions. Because here's the truth. Nobody tells you when you're learning English. You don't need 5,000 words to sound fluent. You need the right words, used at the right moment, with the right confidence. That's what separates someone who studied English for 10 years, but still sounds hesitant, from someone who's been speaking for 2 years, but sounds like they own the room. Today, we're going to close that gap together. Before we dive into the vocabulary itself, let me explain quickly why we're going to learn every single word inside a story or a situation, instead of just handing you a list to memorize. Here's a simple example. If I just tell you the word articulate and its definition, your brain files it away as one more fact, and within a week, it's gone. But if I tell you, imagine you're in a meeting and your manager just finished explaining a complicated new project, and everyone looks confused except you because you actually understood it and you can explain it back clearly and precisely. That person, the one who can explain something clearly and precisely, is articulate. Now, the word has a face, a moment, a feeling attached to it. That's why it sticks. Every word today is going to come wrapped inside a real moment like that. So your brain doesn't just learn it, it remembers it. And I want you to do something as we go. Whenever I ask you to repeat, actually say it out loud, even if you're alone, even if you're a little embarrassed. This is called shadowing, and it's one of the most powerful techniques for building real fluency, because you're not just reading, you're training your mouth, your breath, and your brain to produce the language automatically, the same way you learned your first language as a child. Reading silently teaches you to recognize English. Speaking out loud teaches you to own it. So from this point forward, every time I say repeat after me, I actually mean it. Let's begin. Let's start with the moment most of us dread the most. Walking into work on a day when you feel completely overwhelmed. Imagine this. It's Monday morning. Your inbox has 40 unread emails. Your manager just added a new deadline. And you haven't even had your coffee yet. In your home language, you might just say, "I'm very stressed." But listen to how a fluent, confident English speaker would actually describe this feeling. They might say, "Honestly, I'm feeling a bit swamped this morning." Swamped. This means overwhelmed with too much work, buried under tasks. It's stronger and more natural than just saying busy or stressed. And it's the word native English speakers reach for constantly in a work context. Repeat after me. I'm feeling a bit swamped this morning. Good. Now imagine saying that to a coworker as you sit down at your desk, letting out a small breath, adjusting your chair. I'm feeling a bit swamped this morning. You'll hear this word constantly in real offices, so let's lock it in with a mini conversation. Picture two coworkers, Sarah and James, standing by the coffee machine on a busy Monday. Sarah says, "Hey, how's your morning going?" James replies, "Honestly, I'm feeling a bit swamped. I've got 3 deadlines this week." Sarah says, "Oh no, that sounds rough. Anything I can help with?" James answers, "Actually, yeah, if you have 10 minutes later, I'd really appreciate a second pair of eyes on my report." Sarah says, "Of course, just message me when you're ready." James finishes, "Thanks. I really appreciate that. It takes some of the pressure off." Notice how natural that felt. Nobody sounded robotic. That's what real fluency sounds like. Short, warm, human sentences. Now, let's build on this feeling of being overwhelmed with a related word. Overwhelmed itself, but let's upgrade it. Instead of saying, "I have too much to do," you could say, "My plate is pretty full right now." This is a common English idiom, meaning you have a lot of responsibilities or tasks at the moment. It sounds casual, but professional at the same time. Perfect for both a chat with a friend or a quick conversation with your boss. Repeat after me. My plate is pretty full right now. Excellent. Now, here's your real-life challenge for this block. Later today, when someone asks how you're doing, instead of your usual answer, try saying, "My plate is pretty full right now," or "I'm feeling a bit swamped." Watch how naturally it fits into the conversation. That's progress you can actually feel, not just something written in a notebook. Let's move to the opposite feeling now, because confidence isn't only about naming stress, it's also about naming calm and control when you have it. Imagine you finally finish a big project ahead of schedule. Someone asks how you're doing, and instead of just saying, "I'm good," you say, "Honestly, I'm feeling pretty on top of things today." On top of things means you're managing your responsibilities well, you're in control, nothing is slipping through the cracks. Repeat after me. I'm feeling pretty on top of things today. Beautiful. Do you notice something already? In just a few minutes, you've gone from a basic word like busy or good to 3 completely natural, native-level expressions. Swamped. My plate is full. and on top of things. That's real vocabulary growth, and we've barely started. Now let's talk about a moment almost everyone in the working world faces. The meeting where you need to speak up, but you're not entirely sure your idea is good enough to share. This is where confidence in English really gets tested, because it's not just about the words, it's about the phrases that let you enter a conversation smoothly without sounding hesitant or apologetic. Let's build this scene together. Imagine you're sitting in a meeting room. There are 6 people around the table. Your manager is presenting a plan, and you have a concern. But everyone else seems to agree already. In your head, you might be nervous. But here's the phrase that lets you step in with real confidence. If I could just jump in for a second. Jump in means to enter a conversation, often when others are talking. It's polite, but it's also assertive. It doesn't sound weak or unsure. Repeat after me. If I could just jump in for a second. Very good. Let's put this into a full mini scene, because this is exactly the kind of moment where confident vocabulary changes everything. Picture the meeting room, the low hum of the projector. Everyone nodding along as the manager, David, explains the new marketing plan. You've noticed a potential problem with the timeline, but you haven't spoken yet. Now, listen to this dialogue. David says, "So, as I mentioned, we're aiming to launch by the 15th. You say, if I could just jump in for a second. I think we might want to double-check that timeline with the design team first." David says, "That's a fair point. What's your concern exactly?" You reply, "Well, from what I understand, they're still finalizing the assets, so the 15th might be a bit tight." David says, "Good catch. Let's loop them in before we commit to that date." You finish. "Sounds good. I can reach out to them this afternoon if that helps." Do you hear how that entire exchange sounded calm, clear, and completely professional? Nobody raised their voice. Nobody sounded nervous, and yet a real concern was shared and taken seriously. That's the power of the right phrase at the right moment. Let's stay in this meeting world a little longer, because there's another incredibly useful expression here. Loop someone in. This means to include someone in a conversation or a decision, usually by informing them or bringing them into an email thread or meeting. It's everywhere in modern workplace English, especially in emails. Repeat after me. Let's loop them in before we commit to that date. Now, here's a quick pronunciation and connected speech note, because native speakers rarely say each word separately when they speak quickly. When you say, "let's loop them in fast natural speech, the them often gets reduced. So it sounds closer to "let's loop them in." Listen to the difference. Slowly. "Let's loop them in." Quickly, naturally. "Let's loop them in." Try both versions yourself. Slowly first. "Let's loop them in." Now quickly. "Let's loop them in." This kind of reduction happens constantly in real spoken English, and recognizing it is just as important as being able to say it yourself, because it's exactly what will help you understand native speakers when they talk at a natural, fast pace. Let's add one more meeting phrase before we move forward, because standing your ground politely is a core confidence skill. Core confidence. Imagine someone disagrees with your idea in a meeting. Instead of immediately backing down or aggressively arguing, a confident English speaker might say, "I see where you're coming from, but I still think we should consider the other option." "I see where you're coming from" means, I understand your perspective. I'm not dismissing you, but it opens the door to respectfully disagree afterward. Repeat after me. "I see where you're coming from, but I still think we should consider the other option." This phrase alone can transform how confident you sound in a disagreement, because it shows emotional intelligence and firmness at the same time, which is exactly what advanced English speakers are able to do naturally. Now, let's slow down for just a moment, because I want to teach you something about how your voice itself communicates confidence, not just your words. This is about sentence stress. The way we naturally emphasize certain words in a sentence to show meaning and emotion. Take the sentence, "I still think we should consider the other option." If you stress it flatly, word by word, it can sound uncertain or even robotic. But listen to how a confident native speaker stresses it. "I still think we should consider the other option." Notice how think and other are pushed up slightly in pitch and volume. That stress pattern signals conviction. It tells the listener, "This matters. I mean this." Try it yourself. Say it flat first. "I still think we should consider the other option." Now say it with natural stress. "I still think we should consider the other option." Can you feel the difference in how confident the second version sounds, even though the words are identical? This is something most learners never get taught, but it's often the real difference between sounding fluent and sounding truly confident. Let's take a short breath here, a little pause before we continue building. Close your eyes for just a second if you're somewhere you can. Notice your breathing slow down slightly. You've already learned 6 or 7 completely natural expressions in naturales in just the last few minutes. Swamped. My plate is full. On top of things. Jump in. Loop someone in. And I see where you're coming from. That's real. Usable English already living in your vocabulary. Nice work. That's genuine progress, and we've only just started this journey together. Let's move into our next scene now. Because confidence in English isn't only about meetings, it's also about the small talk before and after them, the human moments that build relationships at work and in daily life. Imagine you're at a work event, a conference, or even just in the break room, and you want to start a conversation with someone you don't know well. Beginners often stick to, "What's your job?" or "Where are you from?" which are fine, but a more advanced, natural opener is, "So, what brings you here today?" This phrase is warm, open-ended, and used constantly by native speakers in social and professional settings, at conferences, parties, even weddings. Repeat after me. So, what brings you here today? Wonderful. Let's build this into a full scene. Because small talk deserves just as much attention as big meetings, since it's often where real relationships and even career opportunities begin. Picture a conference hall, the low buzz of conversation around you, a table with coffee and name tags. You approach someone standing near the snack table, a stranger named Alex. You say, "So, what brings you here today?" Alex replies, "Oh, I'm actually here representing my company. We're launching a new product next month." You say, "That's exciting. What kind of product?" Alex answers, "It's a project management tool aimed at small businesses." You respond, "Interesting. I actually work in a similar space. We should definitely swap notes sometime." Alex says, "Absolutely. Here's my card. Feel free to reach out." Notice the phrase swap notes, meaning to exchange ideas or information casually. It's a wonderfully natural, advanced way to suggest future conversation without sounding overly formal. Repeat after me. We should definitely swap notes sometime. Now here's your turn to practice actively. Using a technique called role switching, I'm going to read Alex's line, and then I want you to pause the video and respond as if you were the person starting the conversation, using what you just learned. Ready? Alex says, "Oh, I'm actually here for the marketing conference next door. Just wandered over during the break." Now, pause and respond naturally using, "So, what brings you here today?" Style energy or react to what Alex just said. Take a moment. Say it out loud. Good. There's no single correct answer here. The goal is training your mouth and brain to respond in real time the way you'll need to in an actual conversation without a script in front of you. Let's continue building your small talk confidence with one more essential phrase. The gain. I couldn't help but overhear. This is used when you want to politely join a conversation you weren't originally part of. Very common at conferences, parties, or even in office kitchens. For example, imagine two coworkers are talking about a restaurant nearby, and you want to join in naturally. You might say, "Sorry, I couldn't help but overhear. Are you talking about that new Italian place on 5th Street?" Repeat after me. I couldn't help but overhear. This phrase instantly makes you sound polished and socially aware, rather than intrusive, because you're acknowledging that you're joining a conversation that wasn't originally yours. Now let's shift into a slightly different context. Giving feedback. One of the most important confidence skills in professional English, because feedback done poorly damages relationships, but feedback done well. Using the right vocabulary builds trust and respect. Imagine your coworker just presented an idea in a meeting, and while it was good, you noticed a gap. Instead of bluntly saying, "That's wrong," or awkwardly saying nothing at all, a confident English speaker might say, I think there's a lot to like here, though I do have a couple of thoughts on the execution." A couple of thoughts on the execution is a wonderfully soft yet clear way to introduce constructive criticism without sounding harsh. Repeat after me. I think there's a lot to like here, though I do have a couple of thoughts on the execution. Let's put this into a workplace scene. Because feedback conversations happen constantly, and having the right language ready removes so much anxiety from these moments. Picture an office, afternoon light through the window. Your colleague Maria just finished pitching a new social media strategy to the team. She looks at you, waiting for your reaction. You say, I think there's a lot to like here, though I do have a couple of thoughts on the execution. Maria says, Sure, go ahead. I'd love to hear them. You continue, I love the creative direction. I just wonder if the timeline is realistic, given our current resources. Maria replies, That's fair. Actually, I hadn't fully considered the resourcing side. You add, maybe we could scale it back slightly for the first phase and expand once we see results. Maria says, I really like that idea. Let's revise it together this afternoon. Notice how the entire exchange stayed warm, collaborative, and productive. And it started with just one well-chosen phrase. Let's pause here and add one more layer. A phonetic note about how questions and statements differ in rising and falling intonation, because this dramatically affects how confident and clear you sound. In English, most statements fall in pitch at the end, while yes or no questions typically rise. Listen to the difference between these two sentences. You're coming to the meeting. That falls at the end. It's a statement. Now, you're coming to the meeting? That rises at the end. It's a question, even though the words are identical. Try both yourself. Statement. You're coming to the meeting. Now the question. You're coming to the meeting? This small shift in pitch is often the only difference between a confident statement and an uncertain question in spoken English, and native listeners rely on it constantly, sometimes more than the actual grammar, to understand your meaning. Nice work staying with me this far. You're building real momentum now. Let's keep going, because we're about to move into one of the most important areas for sounding confident in English. Non-gao, describing your own personality and strengths without sounding arrogant, or, on the opposite end, too modest. Imagine you're in a job interview and the interviewer asks, what would you say is your greatest strength? A hesitant answer might be, I think I'm pretty good at working with people, I guess. But listen to how a confident, articulate answer sounds instead. I'd say, I'm particularly resourceful. I tend to find creative solutions, even when resources are limited. Resourceful is a fantastic C1 level word, meaning capable of finding quick and clever ways to overcome difficulties. Someone who doesn't get stuck easily. Repeat after me. I'd say I'm particularly resourceful. Excellent. Say it again with real conviction in your voice. I'd say I'm particularly resourceful. Let's expand your personality vocabulary further because this is exactly the kind of language that changes how people perceive you within seconds of meeting you. Instead of just saying someone is smart, you could say they're sharp or quick-witted. Instead of hardworking, you could say diligent or driven. Instead of friendly, you could say approachable or personable. Let's practice these together in context. Repeat after me. She's incredibly sharp. She picks up new systems almost instantly. Now, he's one of the most driven people on our team. And honestly, she's just really personable. Everyone feels comfortable around her. Each of these words paints a slightly different, more precise picture than the basic version. And precision is exactly what separates advanced English from intermediate English. Let's build a full interview scene now. Combining several of these personality words together, because this is likely one of the highest value situations where confident English truly matters. A job interviews can change your entire life, and having the right words ready removes so much of the fear. Picture a quiet office. You're sitting across from an interviewer named Mr. Chen. He asks, "So, tell me, how would your previous colleagues describe you?" You respond, "Honestly, I think they'd say I'm resourceful and pretty level-headed under pressure." Mr. Chen asks, "Can you give me an example of that?" You continue, "Sure, last year we lost a major client contract 2 days before a big presentation. Instead of panicking, I quickly restructured the entire proposal overnight, and we actually won a bigger deal with a different client because of how we adapted." Mr. Chen says, "That's impressive. It sounds like you handle pressure really well." You finish, "I try to. I think staying calm actually helps me think more clearly, not less." Notice the phrase level-headed, meaning calm and sensible, especially in difficult situations, not easily panicked. This word alone can be the difference between sounding like someone who merely survives stress and someone who thrives under it in the eyes of an interviewer. Repeat after me. I think they'd say I'm resourceful and pretty, level-headed under pressure. Let's pause for a well-deserved celebration of your progress, because this really is progress. In this block alone, you've learned resourceful, sharp, quick-witted, diligent, driven, approachable, personable, and level-headed. 8. Brand new, natural, advanced words describing personality and confidence on top of everything from our earlier blocks. About meetings and small talk. That's genuinely remarkable progress for such a short amount of time, and your brain is absorbing far more than you probably realize right now, because these words are attached to real emotional moments, not just definitions. Let's shift now into another crucial area of professional confidence. Handling disagreement and conflict gracefully, because this is where many learners freeze completely in English, not because they lack opinions, but because they don't have the vocabulary to express disagreement. This without sounding rude or overly aggressive. Imagine a colleague suggests something you genuinely disagree with in a meeting. A weak, overly blunt response might just be, "No, that's wrong." But a confident, advanced English speaker might say instead, "I hear what you're saying, but I'm not entirely convinced that's the right approach." "I'm not entirely convinced" is a wonderfully diplomatic yet clear way to disagree. It doesn't attack the person, it questions the idea, which is exactly the tone advanced professional English requires. Repeat after me. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not entirely convinced that's the right approach. Let's build one more dialogue here to really cement this skill, because disagreement handled well is one of the strongest signals of true fluency and emotional maturity in a second language. A second language. Picture a strategy meeting, tensions slightly in the air because two team members have different visions for a project. Tom says, "I really think we should focus our entire budget on social media ads this quarter." You respond, "I hear what you're saying, but I'm not entirely convinced that's the right approach, at least not exclusively." Tom asks, "What would you suggest instead?" You continue, "Maybe we split the budget, test social media alongside our usual channels, and compare the results before committing fully." Tom says, "That's actually a fair compromise. I hadn't thought about testing it that way." You add, "It just feels a bit risky to put everything into one channel without data first." Tom finishes, "You make a good point. Let's structure it that way for now." Do you hear how the entire disagreement stayed completely respectful, and yet nobody backed down from their real opinion? That's exactly the kind of confident, mature communication that native English speakers admire and respect in the workplace, and now it's genuinely part of your vocabulary too. Let's add one final piece to this block before we move forward. How to handle it gracefully when you're the one who was wrong. This takes just as much confidence as disagreeing. Instead of a weak, "Oh, sorry, my mistake," a more advanced phrase is, "You know, on reflection, I think you're right. I hadn't considered that angle." On reflection means after thinking about it more carefully, it shows maturity and genuine open-mindedness rather than simply caving under pressure. Repeat after me. On reflection, I think you're right. I hadn't considered that angle. All right. Take a breath with me here, a small pause before we continue into our next major section. You've now built real, working vocabulary across 4 distinct life situations. Describing your workload, speaking up and disagreeing in meetings, small talk with strangers, and describing your personality confidently. Beerpy. That's an enormous amount of genuinely usable English, and we're honestly just getting started because there's so much more real, natural vocabulary waiting for you in the sections ahead. Let's move into a situation nearly everyone deals with daily, whether at work or in life. Writing emails and messages that sound confident and polished, rather than stiff or overly apologetic. Imagine you need to follow up with someone who hasn't responded to your last email in a few days. A hesitant, weak version might be, "Sorry to bother you again. Just wondering if you got my email." But a confident natural version sounds like this. "Just circling back on this, wanted to check if you'd had a chance to look it over." Circling back is one of the most common phrases in professional English writing. It means returning to a topic or a previous conversation, and it sounds far more composed and intentional than simply apologizing for following up. Repeat after me. "Just circling back on this, wanted to check if you'd had a chance to look it over." Notice something important here too. Confident English often removes unnecessary apology. You're not doing anything wrong by following up, so your language shouldn't suggest that you are. Let's build this into a short written exchange because email English has its own natural rhythm. Slightly more structured than spoken English, but just as much about tone and confidence. Imagine you sent a proposal to a client named Rachel 5 days ago. You write, "Hi, Rachel. Just circling back on this, wanted to check if you'd had a chance to look it over. Happy to jump on a quick call if that's easier." Notice, happy to jump on a quick call. Another wonderfully natural phrase, meaning you're glad or willing to have a short phone or video conversation. Repeat after me. "Happy to jump on a quick call if that's easier." Rachel replies, "Apologies for the delay. Things have been hectic on our end. Let's set something up for Thursday." You respond, "No worries at all. Thursday works perfectly. I'll send an invite shortly." Notice "no worries at all." A wonderfully warm, casual, yet professional way to accept an apology without making the other person feel worse. And hectic, meaning extremely busy, full of activity, almost chaotic. Repeat after me. Things have been hectic on our end. Let's stay in this world of professional writing a moment longer because there's a particular skill advanced speakers have. Softening a request so it sounds polite but still gets results. Instead of, "Please send this by tomorrow," which can sound a bit blunt in writing. A more advanced version is, "Would it be possible to have this by tomorrow? I know it's a tight turnaround." Tight turnaround means a short amount of time to complete something, and acknowledging that shows emotional awareness. It tells the other person you understand. You're asking for something difficult, which makes them far more willing to help. Repeat after me. "Would it be possible to have this by tomorrow? I know it's a tight turnaround." Now here's a moment to pause and really notice your own progress. Just in this section alone, you've added circling back, happy to jump on a call, no worries at all, hectic and tight turnaround, 5 completely natural expressions used constantly in real professional writing and speaking. That's genuinely excellent work. And I mean that. This is exactly the density of real vocabulary that moves you from intermediate English into truly advanced, natural English. Let's shift now into presentations, because standing in front of people, whether it's 5 colleagues or 50 strangers is one of the biggest confidence tests in any language, let alone a second one. Imagine you're about to begin a presentation, and instead of a weak, uncertain opening like, okay, so, today I'm going to talk about. A confident opener sounds like this. Thanks everyone for making the time. I'm excited to walk you through what we've been working on. Walk you through is an absolutely essential phrase in presentations, meaning to explain something step by step, guiding the listener clearly through information. Repeat after me. I'm excited to walk you through what we've been working on. Say it again. With your shoulders back, imagining you're actually standing in front of a room. I'm excited to walk you through what we've been working on. Let's build a full presentation scene, because this is exactly the kind of moment where the right vocabulary transforms nervous energy into genuine confidence. Picture a conference room, a screen behind you with your first slide showing a small audience watching, waiting. You begin. Thanks everyone for making the time. I'm excited to walk you through what we've been working on this quarter. You continue. To give you a bit of context first, we started this project back in January, aiming to solve a recurring issue with customer retention. Notice, to give you a bit of context, a wonderfully smooth transition phrase, meaning to provide background information before the main point. Repeat after me. To give you a bit of context first, you continue your imagined presentation. Now, moving on to the results, we saw a 15% improvement within just 2 months. Notice moving on to another essential transition phrase for guiding your audience clearly between sections. Repeat after me. Moving on to the results. Someone in the audience raises a question mid-presentation, a common and often nerve-wracking moment. They ask, sorry, quick question. How did you measure that improvement exactly? A confident response, rather than panicking, is, great question. So we tracked it through our customer dashboard, comparing monthly retention rates before and after the changes. Notice great question, a simple but powerful phrase that buys you a second to think while making the person who asked feel genuinely valued rather than interrupted. Repeat after me. Great question. Then continue confidently with your explanation, exactly as demonstrated. Let's finish this presentation scene with a strong, confident closing. Because how you end is often remembered even more than how you begin. Instead of a weak, okay, that's it, thanks. A confident closing sounds like, so, to wrap things up, I really believe this approach sets us up well for the next quarter, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. To wrap things up signals a clear, intentional ending, and inviting thoughts afterward shows genuine confidence, not fear of questions. Repeat after me. So, to wrap things up, I really believe this approach sets us up well for the next quarter. Nice work, truly. Presentations are genuinely one of the hardest confidence challenges in any language. And you now have real, structured language to open, transition through, handle questions within, and confidently closes one. That's an enormous practical skill you now carry with you. Let's pause here for a short, calming moment, a change of pace before we continue building. Take a slow breath in. Let your shoulders relax down, away from your ears. Notice that even reading this, your body responded slightly. A small physical reset. This kind of brief pause matters because learning, especially learning a language, works best when your nervous system feels calm rather than rushed. So let's continue from this more relaxed place. Now let's move into a slightly different, very natural area of daily English, talking about technology and everyday frustrations or solutions at work, because this comes up constantly in real conversations. Whether it's a slow laptop, a broken printer, or a new software system, nobody quite understands yet. Imagine your computer is acting strangely before an important call. Instead of "my computer has a problem," a more natural, advanced phrase is, "Hmm? My laptop's been acting up all morning." Acting up means behaving unusually or malfunctioning, and it's used for machines, technology, sometimes even people's moods. Repeat after me. My laptop's been acting up all morning. Let's build a quick scene around this, because everyday technology frustration is honestly one of the most universal experiences in modern working life. Imagine you're on a video call and suddenly your screen freezes. You come back and say, "Sorry about that. My laptop's been acting up all morning. I think I missed the last part." Your colleague responds, "No problem. I'll just quickly recap what you missed." You say, "I really appreciate that. Thank you." Notice how smoothly the conversation moved past a small technical problem without any awkwardness, because the right phrase carried real, calm confidence through it. Let's add one more useful phrase here. "Let me just double check that." Used when you want a moment to confirm information before responding, extremely common and useful in both work and daily conversations. Imagine someone asks, "Did you already send that file to the client?" Instead of guessing or panicking, you calmly respond, "Let me just double check that for you." Repeat after me. "Let me just double check that for you." This phrase buys you time gracefully, without sounding unprepared or uncertain, a small but incredibly powerful confidence tool. Now, let's turn our attention specifically to listening and pronunciation, because true confidence in English isn't only about the words you produce. It's equally about how well you understand native speakers when they talk at natural, fast speed, and how naturally your own mouth produces the rhythm of English. Let's talk first about connected speech, something almost no textbook properly teaches, but something that shapes almost every sentence a native speaker says. When words end in a consonant sound and the next word begins with a vowel sound, native speakers often link them together smoothly, almost as if they're one word. Take the phrase, "check it out." Slowly, word by word, check it out. But at natural speed, It often sounds like check it out, almost blending into check it out with the T sound linking directly into it. Try it yourself. Slowly first. Check it out. Now, at a natural, faster pace, check it out, letting the words flow together smoothly rather than separating each one. Let's try another very common example. What do you think? Slowly. What do you think? But natural, fast native speech often reduces this significantly, sounding closer to what do you think? Listen to the difference again. Slowly. What do you think? Quickly, naturally, what do you think? This isn't slang. It's simply how native speakers actually talk when they're relaxed and speaking quickly, and recognizing these patterns is absolutely essential for real listening comprehension. Because if you're only trained to recognize the slow, textbook version, natural conversation will constantly feel too fast, even when it isn't actually fast at all. It's simply connected. Let's practice one more, because this pattern appears constantly. I don't know. Slowly and clearly. I don't know. At natural conversational speed, this often becomes I done know, with the words blending together and the ending softening. Try it yourself. Slowly. I don't know. Now naturally. I don't know. Neither version is wrong. They simply belong to different contexts. Careful and slow for clarity, connected and fast for natural, relaxed conversation. Now let's talk about a real technique for actually training your mouth to produce this natural rhythm. Shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a native speaker and repeating immediately, almost simultaneously, mimicking not just their words, but their rhythm, their pauses, their intonation, like an echo following just half a second behind the original voice. This is different from simply repeating after a pause, because shadowing trains your brain to process and produce English in real time, at natural speed, which is exactly the skill you need for real conversations. Let's actually practice this together right now. I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you to start repeating almost immediately, right on my heels, not waiting until I finish. Ready? I think we should circle back to this after lunch. Try shadowing that now, saying it practically alongside my rhythm, not after a full pause. This feels strange at first, almost uncomfortable. But with practice, it dramatically improves both your listening speed and your natural speaking rhythm, because you're training your brain and mouth to work together in real time exactly as they need to in a live conversation. Let's talk about one more crucial listening skill now. Understanding the main idea when someone speaks quickly without needing to understand every single word. This is something even advanced learners struggle with, because there's a common misconception that fluency means catching 100% of every sentence. It doesn't. Native speakers themselves don't catch every single word in fast, casual conversation. especially in noisy environments. They simply follow the overall meaning and fill in small gaps, naturally using context. When someone speaks quickly and you miss a word or two, instead of panicking or asking them to repeat everything, confident English speakers use small natural responses that keep the conversation flowing while showing you're following along. Null. Phrases like, I see. That makes sense. Right, or simply, mm-hmm. Signal understanding of the general idea, even if you missed a specific detail. Repeat after me. I see. Now. That makes sense. Now. Right. These tiny phrases are incredibly powerful because they keep conversations moving naturally, exactly the way native speakers do with each other constantly, filling small gaps with warmth and presence. Rather than panic or silence, let's practice applying this together. Imagine someone speaks a slightly complicated sentence quickly. Yeah. So basically, we ended up pushing the deadline back a week because the vendor couldn't get the materials in time, which honestly worked out better for us anyway, since it gave the design team more breathing room. Even if you caught only 60 or 70% of that, a confident response is simply, ah, that makes sense. Sounds like it worked out for the best in the end. Notice you don't need to repeat every detail back. You simply respond naturally to the overall meaning. Exactly the way native speakers respond to each other in real, fast conversation every single day. You're doing wonderfully, truly. This section on listening and shadowing is often the missing piece for so many learners, the part that finally connects vocabulary knowledge to real, live conversation confidence. And you've just built genuine, practical tools for both. Let's move now into a scenario many people find surprisingly intimidating in English: negotiating. Whether it's asking for a raise, negotiating a deadline, or simply advocating for your own needs at work. This is one of the strongest tests of confidence in any language, because it requires holding your ground while still sounding warm and reasonable. Imagine you've decided it's time to ask your manager for a raise. A weak, apologetic opening might be, I was wondering, if it's not too much trouble, maybe we could talk about my salary sometime. But a confident, advanced English speaker opens differently. I'd like to set up some time to talk about my compensation. I think it's worth revisiting given everything I've taken on this year. Compensation is a more advanced, professional word for salary and benefits combined. And worth revisiting means worth discussing again, reconsidering. Repeat after me. I'd like to set up some time to talk about my compensation. Say it again, standing a little taller as you say it. I think it's worth revisiting given everything I've taken on this year. Let's build a full negotiation dialogue, because this is genuinely one of the highest stakes conversations you'll ever have in a workplace, and having real language ready removes so much of the fear around it. Picture your manager's office. A calm afternoon, the door slightly closed for privacy. You begin. Thanks for making time for this. I'd like to talk about my compensation. I think it's worth revisiting, given everything I've taken on this year. Your manager, Mr. Patel, responds, Sure, I'm happy to discuss it. What did you have in mind? You continue. Well, over the past year, I've taken on the client accounts that Sarah used to manage on top of my original responsibilities, and I've also led the onboarding process for 2 new hires. Mr. Patel says, That's true. You've definitely stepped up. You respond, I appreciate you recognizing that. Based on the additional scope, I was hoping we could discuss a raise in the range of 10 to 15%. Mr. Patel replies, I can't commit to a number right now, but let me take this to leadership and get back to you by next week. You finish. That works for me. Thank you for hearing me out. Notice the phrase, stepped up, meaning taken on more responsibility than expected, risen to a challenge, and hear someone out, meaning to listen to someone's full opinion without interrupting or dismissing it. Repeat after me. Thank you for hearing me out. This entire negotiation stayed calm, respectful, and clear. And yet you advocated firmly for yourself the whole way through, which is exactly what confident English negotiation actually sounds like. It's rarely aggressive. It's precise and prepared. Now, here's your turn to practice role switching directly. An essential confidence-building technique. I'm going to read a line as your manager, and I want you to pause and respond in your own words as yourself in this negotiation scenario. Ready? Your manager says, I hear you, but budgets are pretty tight this quarter. Can you tell me more about why now specifically? Now pause the video and respond out loud using phrases like worth revisiting, stepped up, or your own reasoning, exactly as if you were actually in that office. Take your time. Say it out loud. There's no single right answer here. What matters is that you practiced producing real, confident English under a bit of realistic pressure, which is exactly the skill that transfers into real life. Let's shift now into a related but slightly different scenario. Expressing your opinion confidently in a group setting, whether that's a team discussion, a family conversation, or a debate among friends. Imagine a group discussion where everyone seems to lean one direction, but you genuinely see it differently. A hesitant opener might be, I don't know, maybe, I could be wrong, but instead, try this confident, natural opening. For what it's worth, I actually see this a bit differently. For what it's worth is a wonderfully humble yet confident phrase. It acknowledges your opinion is just one perspective, while still clearly stating that you have one worth hearing. Repeat after me. For what it's worth, I actually see this a bit differently. Let's build this into a scene, imagining a team lunch where a debate naturally arises about whether the office should switch to a 4-day work week. Picture the lunchroom, plates half finished, a lively, casual energy in the air. Jenna says, honestly, I think a 4-day week would boost everyone's productivity. Marco agrees. Totally, people would come back more focused. You say, for what it's worth, I actually see this a bit differently. I worry it might just compress the same workload into fewer days and people end up more stressed, not less. Jenna responds, that's a fair concern. I hadn't thought about it that way. You continue, I'm not against the idea entirely. I just think we'd need to actually reduce workload too, not just the days. Marco says, that makes sense. Maybe it's worth testing as a trial first, rather than committing fully. You finish. Exactly. A trial period would let us actually see the real impact before deciding. Notice how confidently you disagreed with two people at once, in a completely calm, reasonable way, using nothing but clear, natural, advanced vocabulary. That kind of quiet confidence, disagreeing without conflict, is one of the most respected communication skills in the English speaking professional world, and you're building it right now, sentence by sentence. Let's pause again briefly here. A small breath before we continue. You've now built vocabulary and confidence across negotiation and group opinion sharing, two situations that intimidate even native speakers sometimes. And you've handled both with genuinely advanced, natural English. That's remarkable progress, truly. And I want you to actually feel proud of that for a second before we keep moving forward. Let's now explore a different, very common daily situation. Talking about change and adapting to new circumstances, whether that's a new job, a new system at work, or simply changes in your daily routine. Imagine your company just switched to a completely new software system and everyone is adjusting. Instead of a basic, it's different now, a more advanced, natural phrase is, honestly, there's been a bit of a learning curve, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. Learning curve describes the process and difficulty of learning something new, and getting the hang of it means becoming more comfortable and skilled with something over time. Repeat after me. There's been a bit of a learning curve, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. Let's build a short, natural dialogue here between two coworkers adjusting to this exact kind of change. Picture the office, someone squinting slightly at an unfamiliar screen. Priya asks, how are you finding the new system so far? You respond, honestly, there's been a bit of a learning curve, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. Priya says, same here. The reporting feature took me forever to figure out. You reply, oh, totally. I actually had to watch a tutorial twice just to generate one report. Priya laughs. At least we're figuring it out together. You finish. Exactly. It helps having someone to troubleshoot with. Notice, troubleshoot, meaning to identify and solve problems, especially technical ones, an extremely common word in modern workplace. English, let's also talk about change on a bigger, then, more emotional scale. Because sometimes change means something like moving to a new city for work or starting an entirely new career path. Imagine explaining this kind of major life change to a friend. Instead of a flat, it's a big change. A more advanced, emotionally rich phrase is, "It's definitely been a whirlwind, but I think it was the right move." Whirlwind describes something fast-moving, intense, and a little overwhelming, often used for major life changes, new relationships, or busy periods. Repeat after me. It's definitely been a whirlwind, but I think it was the right move. Now let's build towards something a little different. Your own self-practice exercise. One of the most powerful tools for turning today's vocabulary into a real, lasting habit, something that continues working for you long after this video ends. Right now, wherever you are, I want you to look around you, just for a moment, and silently notice three things. Something you can see, something you can hear, and how you're feeling in this exact moment. Now, using the vocabulary from today's lesson, I want you to describe your surroundings and your feeling out loud in a full sentence. For example, you might say, "There's a slightly cluttered desk beside me. I can hear the faint hum of traffic outside. And honestly, I'm feeling pretty on top of things right now." Notice how naturally on top of things fit directly into a completely real, personal sentence about your actual life in this exact moment. That's the entire goal of everything we've practiced today. Not vocabulary living in a notebook, but vocabulary living inside your real lived experience. Try this yourself right now, out loud. Describe one thing you see, one thing you hear, and how you genuinely feel, using at least one word or phrase from today's lesson, whether that's swamped, on top of things, a learning curve, or any other expression we've covered. Take a moment, say it out loud, fully, as a complete sentence. This single habit, describing your real environment using new vocabulary, is one of the fastest ways to move words from passive recognition into active automatic use, because you're not memorizing, you're actually living inside the language. Let's move now into our fluency round. A chance to move fast, pulling together everything you've learned today into one continuous flow without stopping to explain each word again. Just letting it move through you the way it will in a real fast conversation. I'm going to speak in a connected story, using as much of today's vocabulary as possible. And I want you to simply repeat each sentence right after me, keeping the energy moving, without pausing to think too hard, letting your mouth and brain work together the way they will in real life. Ready? Repeat after me. Honestly, I've been feeling pretty swamped this week. My plate's been completely full now, but I'm slowly getting the hang of the new system, even though there's been a bit of a learning curve. Now, if I could just jump in for a second, I think there's a lot to like here, though I do have a couple of thoughts on the execution. Now, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not entirely convinced. For what it's worth, I actually see this a bit differently. Now, I'd say I'm particularly resourceful and pretty level-headed under pressure. Now, let's loop them in and just circle back once we've had a chance to double-check everything. Now, I'm excited to walk you through what we've been working on. So, to wrap things up, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Now, it's definitely been a whirlwind, but honestly, I think it was the right move, and right now, I'm feeling pretty on top of things. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Notice how naturally those sentences move together, blending words you learned across completely different scenes, meetings, interviews, negotiations, small talk into one connected, flowing rhythm. That is genuinely what fluency feels like. Not perfect grammar, not memorized lists, but real vocabulary moving naturally through real, connected thought, exactly the way it just did in your own mouth. Let's do one more round, a little faster this time, focusing purely on rhythm and confidence rather than meaning. Because your goal here is training automaticity, not translation. Repeat after me, matching my pace as closely as you can. Swamped, on top of things, jump in, loop them in. Circle back, resourceful, level-headed, worth revisiting. Stepped up, hear me out, learning curve, getting the hang of it, a bit of a whirlwind. Good. One more time, even a touch faster. Swamped, on top of things, jump in, loop them in, circle back, resourceful, level-headed, worth revisiting, stepped up, hear me out, learning curve, getting the hang of it, a bit of a whirlwind. Excellent. Work. Genuinely excellent. That kind of rapid. Rhythmic repetition is exactly what trains your mouth muscles and your brain's retrieval speed together. So these words come out automatically, without translation, without hesitation, the next time you actually need them. Before we close today, I want to give you one specific, measurable challenge because vague advice like practice more almost never actually works, but a specific small action almost always does. Here's your challenge. In the comments below this video, I want you to write one full sentence using at least one phrase from today's lesson describing something real happening in your life right now. Whether that's your workload, a conversation you had recently, or how you're genuinely feeling in this exact moment. It doesn't need to be perfect. It simply needs to be real and yours. I will personally read through these comments, and this simple act of writing and publishing a real sentence does something memorizing silently never can. It moves the vocabulary from passive knowledge into active, owned language. Language that's genuinely yours now, not just something you watched once. If today's lesson helped you feel even a little more confident, even one phrase that you know you'll actually use this week, please consider subscribing to Natural Word English and English and turning on notifications, because every single week we build another full set of real, natural, advanced vocabulary together, always inside real situations, real conversations, and real confidence, never just another list to forget by tomorrow. You've done something genuinely valuable today. You didn't just watch a video, you practiced speaking out loud. You shadowed real rhythm. You role-played real conversations, negotiations, disagreements, presentations, and small talk. And you walked away with dozens of words and phrases that are now genuinely, practically yours. Confidence in English isn't something you're simply born with. It's built exactly like this. One real phrase, one real repetition, one real moment at a time. And you just built a whole stack of it today. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. Keep noticing these words in your own life this week. Keep saying them out loud, even when no one's listening. And I'll see you in the next lesson where we'll keep building your English, one real natural word at a time. Take care and speak with confidence.